Kinda sound radio. You're tuning in to change.
Hello, how's it going? And Happy New Year! You're listening to Meditation for Misfits and the dulcet tones of your fellow Misfit host, Chinn. And I'm delighted to be back for another episode. I'm here every second Wednesday at 11 o'clock UK time. If you're listening for the first time, well, what is this show all about? Meditation for Misfits is pragmatic, yet playful with a sprinkling of magic. And along with my fabulous guests, I'm here to inspire and empower you and your young folk through story, interviews, mindful superpowers, and live meditations. And for me, it's important to think that together we can overcome suffering and thrive and stand out as our truest versions, because we were never meant to fit in, we were meant to stand out. Today, I'm really excited with the guest I am bringing on. I'm excited every time, but every time I feel that completely and totally. Today, we've called the show Body Over Mind, and I'm interviewing the wonderful Catherine Wright. Now, Catherine is someone I was thinking when I met her, or when I met you, Catherine, and it was a year and a half ago now. I came along to one of your classes, movement medicine. So I'm from Fife in Scotland. That's where Catherine lives as well. And I went along to to a wonderful movement medicine class in the forest, out in nature, in a stretch tent in Scotland in summer. And I just thought, yeah, this is for me. And maybe this is not something I've talked about on the show so much yet, but something that's in my mindful toolkit for me is very much dance and movement. And I didn't have anything like that in Scotland, because if you've been listening to the show for a while, you'll know that I live near Barcelona, and I've been here for 12 years. And a year and a half ago, I was in Scotland for an extended stay, and I needed stuff like this. And when I met Catherine, I just thought, yeah, I need to come and do this as much as possible. I really love what this woman's doing. I love the energy, and I love how she works and what she's offering to the world. So when I was thinking of guests for this show, I thought I've got to bring Catherine on. Because I know that you've done a lot of other things with your life, Catherine, and I'm really interested to talk about several of those today. Catherine sent me her biography as kind of preparation for me for the show, and it was really interesting to read. So I'm going to give the listeners a couple of things, and then we can dive straight in. So Catherine came to dance later on, but actually she started off with a PhD in philosophy of the mind, and then she's also done conflict resolution therapy, explored a lot of poetry, and it wasn't until 1999 that you found conscious dance, no? And Susanna and Yakov Darling-Kahn, and it was like this universe, this door opened. Right. And then it's just become a huge part of your daily discipline, practice, and refuge. Catherine believes that when we give the body more of a say, we have access to much more wisdom than our minds or even our hearts could fathom, and that dance allows all of us to engage in meeting life with all of our capacity. You also talk a lot about having a deep connection with nature and with trees. And I would like to talk less and listen to you talking about all of these things as well. So I'm going to stop there and just say, thank you, Catherine. Welcome. And before we go any further, shall we take 2 or 3 breaths together? Okay, I'm going to put my hand on my heart. If anyone's listening as well, you want to close your eyes. And we'll just take 2 or 3 breaths, big, long, deep breaths. Just noticing our bodies and noticing our breath and connecting to the moment. And one last big breath. There we go. Transformative effect of 2 or 3 big deep breaths.
Yeah.
So I decided to call this show Body Over Mind, very much inspired by a quote that you sent me, which is by Samuel Beckett. Would you like to tell us about the quote and a little bit more about what it means to you?
Yeah, the quote is, dance first, think later. When I first saw it, it made me think, good heavens, Beckett, did he think that? And then much later on, I realized that it's actually Pozzo who says it in Waiting for Godot. And I don't think he really particularly means it. But it really landed with me because I think it's, for me, it's literally true that I'm very easily triggered. You know, I feel as if I quite often, something quite small happens, someone says something and whoop, I get all, and then I can sort of wander about, mumping about it and, how could they have said that? And then if I remember to dance with it, like just, okay, so what's happening in your body when you say you're triggered? And it's almost always a lot of agitation in, you know, like literally in my stomach, in my breath, and my mouth might be dry. And if I actually allow the body to move with whatever that feeling is, instantly, it's just like those 3 breaths, instantly there's a relief. And then if I've got a lot of feeling going on, then that might need a lot of movement, you know, like if I'm really feeling as if somebody really intended to hurt me, and then, you know, I'll like want to really give it lots of movement and then turn it almost into a kind of ritualized dance. And I mean, when I said that you get more wisdom than your mind can have, or even your heart, and I think bringing the mind into the heart is always a really wonderful thing, just like remembering, because in our hearts, I think we're very warm and loving, but then sometimes our minds are so busy trying to work it all out. But even so, I think, you know, we talk about being brokenhearted and our hearts hurting. And I think in my experience, the body is very steady. You know, like, you know, as soon as that was like, I was sitting there on the edge of my seat when you were doing the introduction. And then when you said, just put the hand on the heart and, oh, it's just like, oh, thank goodness you're still here, body. You know, it's like the body is very steadying, you know, and you go, notice how you're sitting, notice, and like the body and dancing and moving for me is a really simple and powerful and almost instant way of coming back to, steadiness. And like the metaphors that are around for me are things like feeling that the earth is holding me. You know, as you start moving your body, you become aware of gravity, you become aware of your relationship with the actual earth beneath you. And also, of course, if you're moving quite a lot, then you start breathing really quite fast. And so there's just this, like, you don't decide to breathe faster when you start dancing a lot. You just start breathing fast. And I don't know, there's just something about the wisdom of the body that takes care of all of that all by itself. And then when we move our bodies with our awareness inside it, it's as if we're reminding ourselves that we are much, much, much more simple than we sometimes fear. You know, we can get all caught up in all sorts of stories. Yes, exactly.
Yeah, sorry, I realised this is a radio and I'm here like pointing to my mind, you know, and like this kind of monkey mind chatter that we have.
Yeah.
I have to interrupt you and say I've had to write down the body is quite steady. Like that feels like a light bulb moment for me, you know, because I always think that I've got such a sensitive body, you know, the solar plexus and that, but you know, often these feeling triggeredness comes from stuff that's happened in my mind and my thoughts, or connecting to past experiences that of something that's happened in the present moment, but it's still a mental process.
Totally.
Most of the time, sometimes I still think, oh, maybe there's an automatic thing that I don't have so much control over, but I would probably say 95% of the time, the stress I feel in the body or the discomfort has come from here, from my mind, no?
Yes, I think so. And I do really think that it's a physical reaction, that our bodies do actually go on hyper alert, like we hold our breath, our pulse rate goes up. But when we bring our attention inside to, so what is happening here? Oh, well, I notice I'm not breathing at all. I remember once I was in a meeting and I was very nervous. And one of my colleagues just put a piece of paper and she said, breathe. Just sitting watching me.
The simple is powerful. The simple is powerful.
Yeah. Paler and paler, and my chest not moving. And she thought she's going to conk out any minute. And I think that we do that automatically. But when we bring our attention inside and think, oh, what does the body need? Oh, gosh, my back is so tight. What my body needs is a bit of stretching. Oh, that feels better. And it's really simple. And I love that. Yeah, the body is
Do you
quick.
dance every day, Catherine?
Do I dance every day? I certainly bring my attention into movement every single day. And I think of it as a daily practice, and I have little playlists that I like 15-minute practice, 10-minute practice. And so I will do at least 10 minutes and just a couple of favorite tracks. And sometimes I might do really gentle tracks and just lie on the floor and just move in that kind of way. I would call it dance, although it might not look much like dance from the outside.
But then what is dance? How can you define what dance is, I suppose?
Yeah. And I think it's definitely, for me, it's a movement practice, an awareness practice, first and foremost. The dance that I do, there are no steps to learn. I mean, occasionally I would kind of sometimes encourage people to move in a particular way. And it's maybe almost like learning steps, but not really, it's like letting the shaking medicine in and really like almost doing that, even if your body didn't think it wanted to do it. Because, even just doing that for a couple of seconds there and then just noticing how that feels in the body.
Good. I wish I'd changed my question then and asked you, do you move every day? Because I think it's more important. It feels more accessible, I think, to folk listening as well, no? The power of movement.
And I think that question, where are you feeling that in your body? You offer the body some movement. Those two questions, I think I ask many times a day.
So to clarify, could you say that again, that question about where you're, just so it's clearer, because I wasn't 100% sure in case the listeners weren't quite clear what you meant.
So if somebody says something and I suddenly feel scared or upset or, oh dear, I've done the wrong thing, those sorts of things.
Triggered, in some way.
Yeah. The questions that really help for me are, one, where are you feeling that in your body? Then often it will be like right now, as I'm a little bit nervous that I'm not going to get this right, I can feel my shoulders just a bit, they're up a bit and and I think, oh, okay. So can you offer that? Oh, a little bit of movement, a little bit of breath. And then as soon as you do that, something different happens. And I think that doing it often, you really learn how much your body is on your side. That the body is, yes, it's reacting, yes, but it is calling out for the medicine that will really support you. You know, you're sitting there like that, and the body, what does the body want? Oh, surprise, surprise. The body wants a little bit of movement, a little bit of softness. Ah,
I love it.
Yeah.
I would love to know a little bit more about movement medicine in more detail, but we're going to first stop for your first song choice, your first Desert Island Discs, as we've been calling them. So you have picked You Are Enough by Bo Huntress. This is the first time I'd heard this song. Would you like to explain to us briefly why you've picked this song, and then we'll pop it on?
This song was played the first time I heard it. I was in a movement medicine dance ceremony. I was really struggling with something in my life which is really difficult. And it was my turn to go out and dance. We were dancing in threes, and it was my turn to go out and dance. And I was just feeling really exposed. And I moved onto the dance floor and started moving. And this song came on. And I just wept and felt the medicine of that song just entering into my body and opening me to just the idea that maybe actually things are okay after all.
Right, so we're going to listen now to You Are Enough by Bo Huntress. So if you are listening to this show live, then sit back and let the words wash over you. And if you want to put some movement to them, then you are welcome. So here we have it, You Are Enough by Bo Huntress.
Kinda Sound Radio, the station for a global community.
Welcome back to the second section of this show, where I'm interviewing the wonderful Catherine Wright, and we are talking about the importance of movement and the wisdom of the body. And we just listened to an absolutely beautiful song, which something I'm loving about this show is my guests introducing me to music that I have never heard before. And I absolutely love that song. So thank you for bringing it to me and to the listeners, Catherine. I want to say before we go on that this show is pre-recorded, but if anyone has any questions, any comments, or any queries from either myself or Catherine, they can get us on the Instagram, the Kinda Sound Instagram, which is at Kinda Sound, or on our Telegram group, which is t.me/KS Radio. So welcome back, Catherine. At the start of the show, I mentioned that I met you because I came to one of your movement sessions, which are called Movement Medicine. At the time, I didn't know what it was, but for me, I'm quite... I listen to my body when I read about a new activity or a new event, and if I feel like a yes in my body, if I feel a bit of excitement, a bit of curiosity, then I need to go and do that thing. And that's definitely what I felt when I knew these events were happening. So when I came along, I didn't really realize that it was something that other people are trained in, and I'm still not actually 100% clear. So this is for me as much for anyone else listening, because I know this goes beyond Fife in Scotland. Can you explain to us a little bit what movement medicine is and how it came to you?
Yeah, I mean, I think I really quite like the name movement medicine, because the idea is that movement is medicine for the body, medicine for the heart. And somebody else, a musician, said that music is the healing force of the universe. There's something for me about the combination of, and it feels to me like it's a real co-creation between the musicians who, like, most of them are not well known. the musicians that I work with.
Mm.
And they're pouring their healing force out into the world. And then they come out through the speakers into people's bodies. And then they move however they want to move. And it really is an alchemy of creativity, our creativity, their creativity. And somebody wrote to me the other day and said how wonderful it was that the dance class offered her a place to pray and allow magic to flow into her body and out into the mystery. And I just thought, wow. That's gorgeous. And my route into it was Susanna and Yakov, who have been my teachers now for 20-something years. I first came across them when they were teaching 5 rhythms, which is a practice, which is also a conscious dance practice. And I came to it in the way that I come to lots of things. I often think that I've got a strong joiner in capacity. So my pals were talking about it and I think, I want to join in with that. So I came to it actually not so much looking for dance, because although they were talking about dance, what they were talking about was the exercises that they had done. We did an exercise with yes, no. We did an exercise with feeling good, and I was kind of fascinated by that.
Mm.
So that's the thing that drew me to it. And at that stage, it wouldn't have crossed my mind that I would have taught the practice, because I didn't feel very comfortable on a dance floor. I didn't feel, I'd never been a good dancer. I had been, just jigged about as a teenager. I hadn't really, and it hadn't even been my go-to thing when I was young. Like lots of people come into conscious dance because they did a lot of trance dancing, maybe with the assistance of various substances when they were teenagers, or then that they miss that, and then they come to this practice which offers some of the same ecstatic experience, but without the drugs and alcohol. And that wasn't my route. My route was much more, I guess, psychological, where I was looking for some kind of therapeutic support for myself. And dance definitely offered that. And that sense of it being medicine for the body. And I had, by that time, I had quite a lot of therapy. I'd done some therapy training. And I was feeling that I really loved the exploration of the mind. But what I found when I came to dancing was that we would be dancing, say, with a theme or with something, and it's like you switch off the mind, or at least that was my experience of it, and then just dancing with whatever it would be. And then at the end of that process, realizing that you felt much better about whatever it was, whatever it was. Like you might think, coming in on a Friday night to a dance class and you're really hacked off with your boss and you just don't know what to do about whatever, and you think, I'm just going to put it in the dance, and you put it in the dance and you're not thinking about it at all. And then at the end of it, you just find that you're kind of washed through in some way. The body literally does the work for you. And so you don't any longer need to go round and round the hamster wheel anymore, thinking about what you should say, what they should say, you just find that it's sorted itself out, that it's just part of life's rich stuff.
Yeah, like you've managed to process it without having to talk about it or write about it or go to therapy about it. You've managed to process it without perhaps doing it consciously through a kind of rational mental way.
And that's why that phrase, dance first, think later. Because then sometimes it would be afterwards when you would then be sitting in a little threesome explaining what had happened for you. That was just like, it was gorgeous to kind of find that you had, in fact, really moved something through by dancing with it. And yeah, so in terms of learning to teach it myself, the first thing that happened for me was that I embarked on quite an intense study of dance for me. I wasn't thinking about teaching it. But as it so happens, if you want to teach movement medicine, then they suggest that you do exactly that there are a whole lot of prerequisites that you do, where you dance so many hours with different teachers and you do so many intensives. So I was doing all of that. And then when Susanna and Yakov decided that they wanted to, like, this is my story. I mean, I'm not entirely sure what, but bring in a little bit more of the shamanic aspects of dance, like the connection with the elements, the connection with the earth. And then they wanted to do their own thing and teach that. I just signed up for that without thinking of myself as being somebody who wanted to teach it. And so it was quite a slow process for me. I mean, I started dancing in 1999 or 1998. I met Susanna and Yakov in 1999. And then, I think it was 10 years later before I started doing the training. Maybe not quite so much, but yeah. And then, I mean, for me, it was like I knew how I got moving, but learning to support other people to get out of the just frozen fish finger state.
I love that.
It's moving. Like certain sentences help, certain kinds of music help. And there is a lot to know. And it's not that you learn it. It is that you do a lot of dancing in the training and then a lot of reflecting on, why did that work? What was useful about that for you? And so also in the training, what we did a lot was teaching each other, like you would have half a dozen people and then without any music at all, we would talk them into something. And then we would all sit down and kind of reflect on what worked about that, what didn't work about that. And there is a lot to know. And I still feel as if I'm learning. If I go to another dance teacher's class and they say, and I think, oh, that's gorgeous.
Well, like me, Catherine, what you said earlier, I teach kids meditation and teens and support their adults and stuff as a job. And you've said something that for me just connected today, which was, I've got it here, the body's pretty steady. And I'm like, yes, because sometimes we just need someone to say it in a slightly different way, even though we've been embodying that and teaching it. For it to you just move up a level or whatever it is,
Something drops and
yeah. I wanted to just drop in one moment actually to say that something that I really love about the way that you do movement medicine anyway is the poems that you usually read at the end. And Catherine as well has a wonderful newsletter that I almost always read because I know that I'm going to love the poems that she shares at the end. And actually one of the reasons why I brought Catherine on the show is that I call my business Meditation for Misfits these days. And for me, it's really important about reclaiming this idea of not fitting in and understanding that lots of us perhaps suffer for feeling different, no? And quite recently you contacted me and you said, oh, I read this poem out at the end of the dancing this week, and you came to me really strongly, you and your misfits, you said, or something like that. And And I wondered if you would read, I know you've got the poem here, would you like to read it?
I'd love it.
So anyone listening, just if you're multitasking right now, listening to this, please stop and just let this be a bit of a meditative practice, just to listen to this poem, because it is beautiful.
It's a poem by a woman called Julia Fehrenbacher,
Mm-hmm.
and it's called The Only Thing That Makes Sense. The only thing that makes sense is to hold it all tenderly, as if it can break, as if it won't be here forever, as if the moment that is this moment will give you everything if you let it. The only thing that makes sense is to celebrate the exactness of you, to take your own face in your own hands and declare yourself worthy, to wrap arms around the orphaned parts that didn't fit, didn't follow, refused to march in straight little lines. The only thing that makes sense is to make art that is your art. Art that swings, sways, tangles its way through every midnight, as if life, this very exact disappearing life, depends on it. To scatter kindness confetti until walls become wings, hard melts to soft. Not enough becomes a feast of fabulous plenty, a wild, belly-laughing celebration where every tender, breakable thing is invited to the moment that is this moment, the moment that will give you everything if you let it.
Let's just take one big breath, I think. Thank you so much, Catherine. Not only for gifting me, bringing me that poem, and to the lovely people that I support, but also for the way you delivered that. I just loved it. For me, it's like a love letter to that part of me that still sometimes struggles with, I'm not enough, I don't fit in. Sometimes I don't even feel I belong. Where do I belong? So powerful. And I'd like to talk a little bit more. We're going to stop for some music now. Swift gear change. We're going to stop for some music now, and I want to talk a little bit more about this thing of standing out rather than fitting in after the music, and perhaps a little more about that poem as well. But first, we're going to stop and we're going to listen to Wednesday Night by Dub Tribe Sound System. So I said this is a gear change. I would say this is probably a song you want to get up and dance to. And then after the song, I'd love to listen to why Catherine chose this as well. So let's put on Wednesday Night by Dub Tribe Sound System.
Kinda sound radio. We're tuning in the change.
Well, welcome back to the last section of my show today with the lovely Catherine Wright. And we have just been enjoying the second song choice from Catherine, which was Wednesday Night by Dub Tribe Sound System. Now, because the song was quite long, we didn't play the full song. So if you've totally fallen in love with it, please find it and get it on your playlist. Great one to dance to. And I did introduce it as a swift gear change. And then actually remembering the lyrics, we decided, we were chatting about this off air, that it very much fitted in with the poem that you just read, because it's talking about you being perfect just the way you are, right? What does that song mean to you? Why did you pick it, Catherine?
Yeah, I mean, it's a song that goes back to quite early days for me of dance teaching. And I started thinking that it was one of those tunes that I have to ration myself, that, I could just make everybody totally sick of it by just playing every single week, because I think it's a good dance tune. But also I just think that phrase, "you are perfect just the way you are," it can't be said often enough. It's hard to believe it. And I think it's true. We are perfect just the way we are. And if we can make enough space for whatever it is we're feeling, it turns out to be beautiful after all. Like we think that we ought to be always very kind and very gentle and very generous, and then making enough space in the body to receive all of us just as we are. Somehow there is just a magic in that if we, like, I remember once I noticed myself feeling quite angry with people, and then thinking that I ought not to feel like that. And then a therapist that I went to see for yonks and yonks, she had a question that she would ask: "Can you notice how you're feeling without being judgmental of it?" And I thought,
I love that.
oh, it's great. And so just thinking, oh, can I notice that I'm angry without being judgmental? And even the question dropped me down a level, so that then, and then noticing, and again, that question of where is it in the body? And realizing that what I was experiencing as anger was in fact fear. I was frightened that I wasn't fitting in, or that I wasn't. So then I'm getting angry with the people for not. And then realizing, oh, you're actually really frightened. And then just like soothing like I'm sitting here stroking my arms, when you notice you're frightened, just stroking your arms or giving yourself a little rock and just catching the part of you that. But my route into finding that place was noticing I was angry.
Sure.
And then noticing that actually behind the anger, there was this fear.
Yeah. And what kind of society could we have if we enable and support young people to be able to be aware of all those emotions? And I never talk about good and bad emotions. I always talk about comfortable and uncomfortable emotions.
Yeah.
Oh, and if generations like my generation or your generation, no, we didn't have those opportunities to befriend our emotions and to explore them, and therefore all the therapy and all the other baggage and the things we have to unpack, right? And that's why I listen to you speak and I think, it's so important to have tools. We've all got different needs with whatever we're going to need for a mindful toolkit, to be able to bring awareness to what's happening in our body, or bring awareness to what thoughts are triggering that feeling or whatever, right? And then there's a phrase I always use when I'm training other adults on the Connected Kids course, so that they can also learn to teach meditation to kids and teens. It's like we can't have change without awareness. So how do we get to the awareness? Well, it's going to depend on the person, their age, their stage, So absolutely. Absolutely. And I wanted to, we probably could talk for hours, but I wanted to ask you briefly, I asked you to read that poem today because for me it was like, wow, this is going to be like the anthem. I've got a Facebook group, which I know you're part of, Catherine, and I thought this is our anthem. This poem's got to be part of the group. But what resonates for you in that poem as well? I love to talk about this idea of, like, let's embrace our quirky oddball selves and stand out in the world, because fitting in is going to make us miserable. So embracing being different, even if it's a bit scary, you know? How do you feel you stand out in the world? What's your relationship with being different or being misfit or whatever word you would use, I suppose?
It's interesting because you had sent me that question ahead of time. So I've been musing on it quite a lot. And I think one of the bits in that poem that really resonates for me is when she says, take your own face in your own hands. And there's something about, for me, the bringing of more kindness in, because I think the hook for me around other people has always been that hook of comparison. That person's better at this, and I'm not good enough. And to kind of take your attention away from wanting to be good enough to fit in, to just really bring more kindness into the system, bring more, like putting your arms around the part of yourself that feels orphaned. And I think, because I don't know if I have a very strong sense of myself as wanting to stand out. I found myself thinking what the phrase wanting to take a stand for kind of resonates more of that, you know, that standing for equality, standing for more kindness, standing for tolerating in myself and others things that don't look that great, or, you know, to use your terminology, those uncomfortable feelings. Those are the things that I feel are absolutely crucial for me to, and the person that I have to keep working with most often is, of course, me. That desire to be better than I am in all sorts of ways. And yeah. I
love that response. Did you want to say anything else? Sorry.
No, I think, yeah, that, because I think once I start thinking about standing out, I then sort of look around at the people who are outstanding and feel, then that sort of triggers that competitive feeling, oh, well, I couldn't stand out. Whereas somehow that coming back into the softness towards myself and towards other people, you know, and also that thing of, you know, can you notice what you're feeling without being judgmental? And sometimes I say, no, I can't. And she would say, can you then be tolerant of the part that can't tolerate? Oh, okay, that's a good trick. Because, you know, like coming all the way back to a part that is comfortable and thinks, this system, this person that I am is okay, even though she lost her temper with such and such, even though she didn't have enough, you know, patience to see something through or whatever. So, yeah.
That's lovely. Thank you. And I'm going to reflect on what you've said about the standing out thing. That's made me think. This is why I really like these conversations as well, because it makes me reflect on the words I use, the language, the message I'm transmitting, who that's reaching. So thank you. It's really rich what you've shared, for sure, for sure. We're actually coming towards the end of our time, which is unbelievable. Before we excuse me, before we finish, there's something that I really like to do with my guests is like just a really small gratitude practice. So that's something I teach a lot with people of all ages, that no matter how rubbish your day is or how bad you might be feeling, finding even one thing that you feel grateful for, whether it's the breakfast I ate or the sun is shining. It doesn't matter how small or big, it can just shift things just a little bit, even if it's 1% or 5%, no? So it's something that I like to do with my guests, and also invite whoever is listening to do it at the same time. So let's put our hands on our hearts. And would you like to start? Or would you like me to start, Catherine?
Oh, well, it's very easy for me to start with how grateful I am to you for inviting me to come and talk about these things that I am so passionate about. Talk all day. So, yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Catherine. Is there anything else that you would like to share that you're grateful for?
Oh, I'm really grateful to live where I live, even though the snow has made it kind of difficult to get home or difficult to get out anywhere. It is exquisitely beautiful. And on Saturday morning, when every single twig had a little heap of snow sitting on it, yeah, and the world was so quiet. It's just, yeah, I feel grateful for the ever-changing natural world, which just keeps offering us all these amazing, beautiful gifts every day.
Thank you. Just listening to you is very calming there. I am really grateful for having found conscious movement, whether it's with you or in other spaces that I do it, as something that is fundamental to my well-being, my ability to do my job from a place of connection, joy, and playfulness. Because if I am not playful and silly and this young kind of spirit that I manage to inhabit, then I can't connect with young people so easily. So I'm so grateful for movement and for dance, and especially for your sessions in this magical place in Falkland. I'm just grateful to have that in my life. And I'm really grateful for this new music. And I'm really grateful for this conversation, Catherine, because I feel inspired and lifted up. And I hope that whoever is listening as well has got a few nuggets of gold that they can take away with them as well. And with that, I would love for you to introduce the last song, which is The Bookmark Prayer by Simon de Voyle. And before you do that, just a little nod to the listeners. Thank you for your time as well and for your attention. Remember that you can reach out with any questions or any comments to the Instagram, which is @kindasound, or on the Telegram, which is t.me/KS Radio. So I want to say thank you to the listeners, and please reach out. We'd love to hear from you. And as I always love to say, remember that the best thing we can be is our truest versions. And I really feel the conversation is very much focused on that today. And I've really enjoyed listening to your wisdom and your insights, Catherine. So without further ado, The Bookmark Prayer by Simon de Voyle. Why this song?
It's interesting because I noticed that all three songs that I chose have got words in them. And I would say that 80% of the music that I use doesn't have words. And yet, sometimes when there are words, I think they just hit the spot. And this one, you know, it really, the message of it is, whatever happens, I am here. I think of it as a poem. I've got a whole book of poems called Love Poems from God. And it's like, I love the idea that God writes us love poems, because like, if there is such thing as God, that, you know, that it's this being human is not always the easiest thing. And yeah, St. John of the Cross, who is another poet that I love, says, really, you know, it's God who should ask our forgiveness, not we him. And there's a kind of, this poem is kind of, this song is saying, I'm always here. There's always, and I feel also that it's that quiet, still place at the center of our hearts is always here for us. Do not be afraid. Do not be afraid. It's always here. You can always come home to this place. So I love that song.
Thank you, Catherine. Your third Desert Island Discs. It's Bookmark Prayer by Simon DeVille. And thank you so much for your time, Catherine. It's been wonderful.